Because I had a band, I mean, like everyone else, I formed a punk band. And it was terrible, because I was singing. And we supported the Adverts and the Lurkers and all these bands.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Around Aylesbury, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
And we did a single for some label, and that was supposed to be produced by the Flaming Groovies, because they were another band that I wrote about back then and went on tour with. They were great, the Flaming Groovies, because they'd always turn up. The first time Tie Sticks. I mean, they were like San Francisco stoners. I'd never met the real, genuine article, you know, great blokes. And I asked them to produce our single, and they turned up when we'd finished, because I could only get a sort of dead time booking 9 to 2.
Yeah.
And they turned up at 2:30 when we were listening to it back. Went, hey, that sounds cool. So that was it. So I still put produced by. But then we started Zigzag Records. Around about the time, it was some shady drug dealer had some money to get rid of and financed our label. This is through the publisher, not me. And and I was all set to, you know, rehearse up these 2 songs. And 3 of the band left because their girlfriends hated me because they thought I was a bad influence, you know. And they were all destined for a life of
accountancy.
Normality, yeah, you know.
There's not wrong with accountancy. If there's any accountants in the house, it's an honourable business to be in. However...
No, hang on, these fall at me. Well, they kind of, they all left. And I'd already asked Mick from The Clash if he'd produce it, and he said he would. And Mick being Mick, he was a very different person back then. He was living out all his rock and roll fantasies, you know, he got into certain things. He talked about it a lot. Yeah. And I said, where do you want to do it? He said, Olympic. You know, that's where the Stones and Hendrix and all that.
Led
Zeppelin, you know, all the greats, sort of that place in Barnes. And he kind of, it cost a lot of money. So, but we booked it because we had all this wedge. But then all the band left. So I said, mate, I'm going to have to cancel the session. We haven't got a band. And he said, I'll get you a band, turn up. You know. So there was still the guitarist, Colin, me and him were, you know, still like the core of the band. And we turned up at Olympic, and the first thing I saw when I walked in was a big pink flight case with The Clash stenciled on it, and there's Johnny Green, the legendary tour manager, setting up Topper's drum kit, and I thought, oh no. And they'd just come back from their first American tour, and they all walked in wearing like Vietnam jackets, you know, those things with, you know, I've done my time in hell, and I thought, oh, right, this is good, I'm singing with The Clash, and I really hated, I mean, I was just shouted, I can't sing, you know. But we did it, and Mick put to work. They'd done give him enough rope, and that's when Mick learnt how to work a studio and overdub and stuff like that. And you could see he just wanted the chance to build all these guitar overdub pyramids, and it was like a dress rehearsal for London Calling, because he was putting in these things, which I never heard in the finished thing, but they contribute to the sound. And that's the worst moment. I mean, he sent everyone out when I did my singing. So I'm in the vocal booth where Mick Jagger did Sympathy for the Devil, with Mick standing in front of me, you know, and he's working with Joe. And I was singing an octave higher than I normally do as well. But I did a big, for some reason, wildebeest impersonation at the end. You know, like, Baroo, which The Clash had been doing a lot on tour, in the tour bus. And when London Calling came out, I don't know if you know that halfway through London Calling, that bit where it goes, yeah. And Death or Glory, there's a load in there. And then Should I Stay or Should I Go? That's actually my mate Robin letting rip halfway through. So, yeah, it caught on, the cry of the wildebeest. It was like, so, no, that's brilliant, you know. I mean,
Have you still got copies of that record then?
I've got one.
Have you? How much, I mean,
I did have a box, you know how it goes.
how much are they worth? No, that must be.
Well, I don't know, not many people know about it.
Yet.
I think it goes for about 40 quid or something.
Right, okay, well.
Oh, yeah.
Right, come on then. Chris, tell us the animal noises story.
Well, the next time I was in a vocal booth doing
This is all part of your relationship with Leeds, because, you know, as much as the Clash have had a good relationship with it, you've got.
Yeah, I'll leap forward now a few years.
We'll be going back later.
Yeah, so how am I going to bridge this gap? In between doing Zigzag, I lived with youth for 3 years, so I was like tour managing his band and running the Bat Cave in London. Not single-handed, I was helping him with the Bat Cave, you know. Although I was never a goth.
Not that there's anything wrong with being a goth.
There's nothing wrong with being a goth, but you know, well, I sort of was. I don't know. I never saw any trends or anything. I just did what I did, and thrust it on that club, you know, and then went to live in New York for 5 years.
How did you end up going to New York? That's one thing I've never asked you.
Right, I went to New York 30 years ago next month, and this actually leads up to where we're going next.
Brilliant.
How do I boil this down?
We've got at least another 2 hours. Everybody's all right for a couple more hours, aren't they? Yeah.
Right, I went to New York. I'd always wanted to go to New York because of the Ramones, and before that, you know, the New York Dolls, because I saw them back in the day and all that. So I really wanted to go to New York, and went with the Bat Cave. We did the Bat Cave, and I met my future wife there. So I ended up, I'm cutting a very long story short, but I had a ball in New York. I was there for like 2 or 3 months, and I was infatuated with New York radio, which was all like hip hop, master mixes and all this stuff. Basically the run up to Acid House. And I couldn't stop going back there after that. And infatuated with the radio, the look, the place. You know, it was a different place to what it is now, like most places are. And by the time I got back in sort of 1984, I was pursued by this lady that I'd met in New York, who I didn't know was going out with the guitarist in Def Leppard and the guitarist in Kiss at the same time. And
so hang on a minute, you were in like a Kiss Leopard sandwich?
Yeah, I didn't know, you know, and also Sid Bates from the Dead Book. I mean, the list is endless, and I really didn't know. Although she used to brag about it as if it was me. And pursued me to London, and we ended up getting married so she could stay in the country. And when I was at youth, but he didn't like her, so he chucked me out. And suddenly everything had gone from being like jetting around, glamorous, etc. My son Daniel was born in April 1985, so within the space of 2 years, I've gone from being, you know, Bat Cave guy in New York to a dad, homeless dad in London. And Daniel was born, and she went back to New York with Daniel. So I pursued them. And Mick Jones from The Clash gave me the money to go see him. You know, that's one of the best things. I mean, again, you know, he came out and said, go see your son, and he gave me the airfare. So I went over to New York, and just happened to coincide with Acid House was brewing, and I started working for a magazine. After about 3 years of being very heavily involved in the Alphabet City, hard drug scene. I nearly died. I got busted. I spent a lot of time in burnt out buildings on Avenue B. I mean, it was a very, something I'm really glad I did, because I met some great guys, and I got a great insight into the mind of a junkie, but I got all that behind me and started working for Dance Magazine at Tommy Boy Records, and that was about 1989.
What a gig to land. How did that happen?
Have you done Keith Richards before that, though?
Sorry?
What about you, Keith? Was that before or after that?
Oh, this was happening at the same time. Oh, I forgot about
The
him.
Clash, Keith Richards, David Bowie, the Ramones.
Yeah, no, Keith was when? 1980, 1983, 84. I'll just finish this bit and then we can go.
Yeah, no, it's all right. No, at least an hour and 55 minutes left.
Right. It says I'm getting to the Leeds bit, believe it or not.
That's good.
So
We'll get there. We're already here, so,
Yeah. But no, I was in Tommy Boy Records because, let's say I had to make a certain amount of money every day. Let's say I had to go and buy drugs every day so I could stay normal. And the way to do that then was going around the record companies, blagging records. Okay. And I had that, Nick Kent will tell you the same thing. We had this down to a fine art. Go to the company and say, that band you've got, Haircut 100, I'd love to do a feature on them. And then they give you a pile of albums and you run off and sell them instantly, Oh, Wham, they're great. Oh, yeah, And I was at Tommy Boy, blagging a load of hip-hop, mainly because I liked hip-hop, but I was sort of getting like an extra, can I have one for my mate? And I'd go and sell the doubles. And while there, I was talking to the press officer, and she said that we need an assistant editor for Dance Music Report in the back, so I started doing that. Did an interview. I worked there for about a year. And during that time, I reviewed a record by a singer called Wonder, who's from Cleveland, Ohio, and I liked the record. I did the review, and she phoned me up and said, thanks for the review. I'm in New York. Do you want to meet up? And so we did. And I don't know, we just sort of hit it off. And when I got mugged really badly on the subway. I really got smashed up, and I overstayed my visa by 4 years. So I was kind of marooned in New York. I couldn't go back because they'd see my passport and see that I was only stamped for a certain time. So when I got mugged, came up with a brilliant idea of saying they'd nicked my passport. So I filed a police report, got a new one, and I came back to the UK. And about a month later, Wanda followed me, and she wanted to make it as a singer. And in that time, I hooked up again with Youth. While I'd been away, he'd become, a hotshot record producer, and his best mate Alex had become the Orb.